So Isaac, are we okay to proceed?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. There we go. Hopefully folks can see me, hear me fine. I am Ted Reinhardt. I'm coming to you from Canada. And what got me interested in the internet computer was its technical elegance, absolutely sheer brilliance. And I found that the community has been very supportive, and it's filled with incredible people who've been helpful. And I've been enjoying learning, and I want to learn something new. I just retired from my job after 35 years of managing large-scale IT organizations, and I want to try something completely new. So I was listening to some of the conversations and watching the Discord today, and it's amazing to see how things have evolved in such a short period of time. I started building my first app just like you did, the Hello World. Then we moved on to the first hackathon where we all worked on creating games. We were watching how Seb won some of the prizes. Very excellent work. And then suddenly Hazel, a prolific developer on the internet computer, created a NFT minter that allowed me to create a 360-degree virtual reality implementation of an art gallery as an NFT. And I had never played with NFTs before, and it was a learning experience for me. And I'll just show you, I think I can possibly show this. No, it's going to disappear, so I will not show. I'll show it later. All right. So this is going to be a beginner level introduction about making NFTs on the internet computer. And this briefing got swapped with Jorgen Builder, who's going to be doing a deep dive into one of the protocols. But this is more general, less about programming. I'm happy that I'm not covering off the technicals, because I'm not a very strong developer. I would even say I'm not a developer. So it's very important that you do your own research, that you understand that the NFT space on the internet computer is evolving. New ideas are constantly emerging. New services are being built. Existing ones change, and sometimes things break. And it's very important that you engage with developers, other people, your peers, people who are very learned. We've got some fantastic resources that make themselves available. They're responsive on Twitter, on Discord, on Reddit. And try to stay up to date with how all these things unfold. So Avocado Research put out a really neat market capitalization chart recently, and they showed about $50 million being sunk into the internet computer marketplace. And you think about it for a second, it's been a little bit less than a year, and things have greatly evolved. May of last year, smart contracts around NFTs start to emerge. I mentioned that suddenly Hazel put her token out on Twitter and said experiments to come, and others were doing similar work, and it's absolutely incredible. It's inspired a lot of people to learn about NFTs, the smart contracts on the IC, and then in the meantime we were all learning Motoko, which everyone struggles with at the beginning. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is an NFT? So first of all, it's not fungible, meaning that it is unique and cannot be replaced. So coins are fungible, and you can replace one coin with another coin or multiple coins of different values. They can be exchanged for a single coin of equal value. So in comparison, a non-fungible token is unique. Often it's a reproducible digital file, such as a photo, video, or audio track, and it is unique. So The ownership info is stored on the blockchain, but it doesn't restrict the sharing or copying of the actual original digital file. The lack of interchangeability, that distinguishes the NFTs from blockchain fungible tokens such as the ICP or Bitcoin. So an NFT is much more than just a pretty picture. It is a digital asset along with the ownership information that's stored in the ledger and the smart contract to manipulate it. So the internet computer is being, it's a very affordable computational and storage platform. That means that the smart contract and digital assets can be both stored on-chain in an affordable manner, which is fantastic. If you compare how NFTs are stored on the Ethereum blockchain, very expensive. Gas is very expensive. Not so much here. We saw Seb create some NFTs earlier today, and he still has money in his pocket, so it's affordable. So just in terms of the basic NFT terms, digital assets, we're always referring to images and music, video games, game pieces, software, ticket stubs. The minter mints the NFT and it registers the digital asset on the ledger. The wallet, that's where your assets can be viewed or transferred. The marketplace is where you can buy and sell NFTs. And the collection, it's a series of NFTs with a common theme, style, or purpose. Now, one other term, which is a little bit not obvious, are standards. Standards specify the data structure and functions underlying the NFT. It's the smart contract interface for the NFT, and we'll be looking at that a little bit more later. So ways to make an NFT. So basically, you create a digital asset, an image or a PNG file, could be any type of digital asset, whatever you want to put into your NFT that's supported by your minter, because you're going to want to be able to view it later or access it later. And you can either use an online minter to create the NFT or build your own. Now, the online minting capabilities are emerging. We had Bob Bodley the other day was presenting some information about Bob's NFTs. So there are a number of experimental platforms that have come and gone. Some of them have since shut down, not because of anything other than they were sort of test environments and people want to try the concepts. And there are some online services where you can select your digital asset to mint, and then most often you pay to mint. And some that I've noted here is our NFT Anvil, that's in development. Bob NFTs, that's a minting service which you've seen. NFT Studio is out of Poland, I believe. And ICME Minter, they're working and bringing their product to market shortly. So if the minter mints the NFT, you need something to be able to see it and transfer it. And that's where the NFT-enabled wallet comes in. The wallet is able to call methods of the underlying NFT smart contract used by the NFT. So we saw in Seb's demonstration earlier that there were a number of functions in the code that was being executed by the smart contract. And the wallet is able to call some of these methods and display the information out of the canister. So for example, what is the name of an NFT? What symbol does that NFT use? And do you want to transfer from a particular account the NFT and send it off to someone else? So there are a number of NFT-enabled wallets in use, each with unique functions and their own ecosphere. A particularly interesting implementation is what Discover has done. Discover is a social media dapp, and a while ago they airdropped some NFTs on the community. Those NFTs, if you were fortunate enough to receive them, were subsequently used as a gated access method to a portal whereby only people who had that token could actually gain access to the information behind the portal. You could transfer that NFT to someone else, and as soon as you did that, you would instantly lose access to the portal. If you received it back, you'd regain access to it. So it could be like a subscription model. So that was really cool that they implemented that. And it's worthwhile exploring wallets and look at how they play differently into their respective ecosystems. And I've listed a couple of popular wallets that are out there. Certainly Stoic and Plug are the most popular that I have seen. And then there's Earth Wallet, and I'm certain there's others that are emerging. So minting NFTs is one thing, but then selling them requires a marketplace where buyers can buy and sellers can sell. And many NFT creators are thinking of creating their own marketplaces because there are often delays in getting your new collection listed on a marketplace. And this can result in some frustrating delays for people who are trying to get their collections out for sale. The marketplace, and we heard Bob speak about this the other day, the marketplace wants to ensure that the user experience is positive for their clients. So you can write some really lousy code inside of your NFT. It can be slow, it can time out, there can be lots of issues. They want to make sure that whatever you're bringing to the marketplace is going to be enjoyable for their clients. Also, they want to make sure that the NFT project is real and not a scam, and that the code inside of the NFTs is not going to mount an attack to steal someone's wallet contents. So the volume has been incredible. Onboarding new projects takes time. They have to do their diligence. And that's why there's a little bit of delay when it comes to new projects. So we said we talked about standards. Now, the Internet Computer has not defined a single NFT standard. There are many approaches being used and derived as projects move to get their NFTs out of the door. So ironically, we call all of these things standards, but they've not been ratified by a group or a body. Everyone focused on getting to market quickly. And now I think there's interest in sorting through if there's commonality between NFTs, and there may be some movement in the future. But for the time being, we have multiple standards that are out there. Many of these are very poorly documented. And there is an opportunity to strengthen this area. Often, the only documentation available is source code. There is one particular protocol that's out there that's put out by Psychedelic, who have a lot more information on their repo about the interface and the data types, which makes a nice document to read and to implement. So if you just look at the number of things there, you've got ICP 721, EXT, ICNFT, DIP 721, another DIP 721, which are not necessarily the same implementations. They just had these names were similar. So there's lots of choice, and that causes a little bit of complexity. Inside of these standards, if you were to look at the Psychedelic DIP 721, it defines the methods that the smart contract supports. So by methods, I'm referring to things like if you were to implement the psychedelic DIP 721 basic interface, they've got things like balance of DIP and everything. All their methods, they've put DIP 721 at the end, because if you have two different NFTs, you want to separate your methods so that you know which one you're dealing with. But balance of DIP, logo DIP, name DIP, owner of DIP, this is how all of the methods are listed. And then for each of these methods, they go out and explain what are the arguments when you're going to call the methods. So if you're going to check to see if you were the owner of DIP, check to see if you're the owner of the NFT, you have to pass as the argument the token ID. And it's going to give you back a result. And the result is going to either say there's an error, or it's going to provide you with the principle just saying, okay, everything's fine. So many standards call their functions the same as other standards. Some use different names for the same functions, same arguments, different arguments. The return values and types can be different. And unfortunately, this makes a little bit of a challenge when it comes to integration. So you can have a scenario like this, where you've got multiple standards being used by different projects, and certain wallets may not work with other minters. Certain minters may not work with certain marketplaces. And addressing schemes may be different as well in terms of, are you using a principal or are you using some other form like an account? So the lack of standards presents a challenge, but DAB is an interesting service. It offers a registry of NFTs, not of your NFT holdings, but a registry of NFTs, the standard they're following, and the canisters holding the actual ledger for that NFT. So DApp can query and find out about NFTs, NFT collections. And a new project can add their collection to the DAB registry, so their collection can be found and integrated into other platforms automatically or in an easier manner. Another service called CAP allows you to explore transaction history of the NFT if that NFT is subscribed to the CAP DApp. And it removes the burden of having to develop the code yourself to look at the transaction history. We heard earlier that it's complicated to do that, and this sort of takes that complexity out of the equation. So now that you're going to be building a NFT, you have to make a few choices. And for the project that you're working on, not all of these choices have to be sorted out, but I'm just thinking a little bit longer term when we're talking about NFT and developing of minters and your whole ecosystem. So the first thing you have to figure out is what standard are you going to be using? What style? Are you going to be using a DIP 721, an EXT? You have to choose one because you're going to write your code to that standard. You have to determine how many assets are you going to be keeping track of for the NFT. So are you only going to be putting in a high-res image, or are you also going to be putting in a low-res image so that it's faster when you're shopping? Are you doing multiple layers of SVGs? Are you including video and audio? These things need to be included because you have to account for them into your NFT structure. From a storage perspective, are you going to be storing your information in the asset canister? Are you going to be storing it in multiple canisters because there are constraints on how many things you can store in an actual canister? The size is constrained. So are you going to do multiple canisters? Are you going to store it somewhere else, like in IPFS or Airweave? And if these are large files and you're storing them on chain, you have to contend with chunking. You have to break it up so that it can be consumed by your canister. Payment is an important consideration. Most people like getting money for the work they've done. And how are you going to integrate payment? There's work going forward with Invoice Canister. Suddenly Hazel's got Quark. There's the issue of CAP integration for transaction history. You could also build your own. Security, you have to implement access control. You may want to look at black holing the management of the NFTs. Audit of the code and doing code reviews is important, because you don't want to introduce a vulnerability where someone can steal your NFTs. We had a great session earlier last week. Anvil NFT were presented about the difficulty of waiting for asynchronous transactions and the importance of making sure that the NFT gets paid for before transferring out. But there are pluses and minuses with doing that. So these are considerations. Then, of course, there's the integration aspect. Are you going to use DApp? Which wallets are you going to support and test? Which marketplaces? Are you going to get some metrics? There's a product out from a group called User Geeks, and it's called NFT Geek. And they are providing some metrics so that you can see how the performance is of your NFTs in the marketplace. So lots of consideration. One of the coolest things is that while the NFTs are stored in canisters, creating a canister costs about $3 on the IC. So it's about 2 trillion cycles to open up a canister. And it's really not very expensive to store your assets on chain. But you have to remember to keep your canisters topped up with funds so they keep running. It's a reverse gas model, and that's an important consideration. And we actually heard that from Bob the other day. So the next section I have on video, and it's I'll make the link available, but I'll just step you through the actual process of building an NFT. These are static images that I'm going to show you rather than running it, because it takes a little bit of time to go through and have DFX respond. So we'll run through this. So everybody's got their canister running with SDK running and installed, and you've all got through the hello world greeting DApp running. You've had that already. So here I'm just going to use the DIP 721 standard that was implemented by Hazel, Suddenly Hazel, and I'm going to be pulling it out from something called the the blocks editor, because it's quite easy to demonstrate, and I'll show you something you might have seen before. So in this case, we would just create a new project, and I'm calling it DIP 721. So you just do a straight DFX new DIP 721. And from there, it'll kick off this screen, and it will install, and when successful, it displays the beautiful Dfinity color symbol. In my example, I happened to create 3 beautiful works of art, and I just called them 1 PNG, 2 PNG, and 3 PNG. And I've stored them in the assets subdirectory, naming them 1, 2, and 3 PNG. Then we push out the code. We start the replica saying DFX start, and then I do a DFX deploy. And the DFX deploy goes out and creates the canisters. and loads the canisters with the WASM compiled module. And then npm start will start up the node instance. And if you were to go to the browser and localhost 8081 or 8080 and refer to the static asset of the PNG, it would pull up this image. Now we have to go and grab the actual smart contract code. And I'm just going to see if I can bring up a browser here with that. So here is the blocks editor, github.io blocks editor. It's kind of cool. When you start it up, you get to this screen and you can actually say load. And I'm going to load the DIP 721 project. And it comes up here on the screen. It's loaded all of the code structures. This is a visual way of writing Motoko code. Super cool. But the neat thing is I've just loaded the code and now I want to compile it. So that when it says compile, it's not compiling it as in a C compiler, it's creating the Motoko code. And here is the entire Motoko code for the DIP 721 contract. It's all there. And then all I have to do is at the bottom of the screen, and I won't be able to show it here. Let's see if I can get there. At the bottom of the screen is a button that says copy. And so I can't get to there because I'm in Zoom, but I will just copy and paste it. So I've cut it out of there and away we go. So there's a button at the bottom of the screen called build and run. And when you do that, it brings you over to the Motoko playground and it installs the code and gets ready to deploy. And there I just pressed deploy. It's going to request a new canister ID. And now I have a deployed NFT on the IC in production that's going to be there. I think it's for 20 minutes. Yeah, it says canister main. It just lets you play with it for a little while, then it blows it away. So if I want it to, I can go down here. One of the things that we want to do is mint a NFT. So I'll put this as my URI and I'll call it. And you can see that it's minted, this URI, and my token is token number 1. So it's a really simple way of going through. And if you haven't played with the Motoko Playground, it is your friend when it comes to figuring out types and whether or not you're moving the right type between various functions and variables. In here, just exploring briefly, we can just walk through and look at how the actual code is. And you can see the functions. So I'll just go down and find some public functions that we can use. So public shared query function, balance of. So you can see that balance of needs the principal. And we can see who is the owner of a token. So for example, if I want to look at who owns the token that I just minted, I'll go and find out who is the owner of. And if we look at this, who is the owner of token ID has to be provided. So I'm going to provide the token ID. So token ID number 1, and I can query it. It's going to come back and it says, oh, this is the principal. It's a little bit different because we're inside of the Motoko Playground, but this is the token. Okay. And then let's say I wanted to transfer the token to someone else. I can go and find the transfer function, which is probably in alphabetical order. I'm going the wrong way. And I can actually put in here, I can transfer from here, and I can pick another address to transfer it to. So and then I can just say go and do it, and I would put transfer token 1 call, and it would do that. So I'll get rid of this now. So that's what the block editor, I just use that to grab the code. I also have it sitting in my repo, but just it's an easy way of getting it very, very quickly. So I'll just get back to where I can control this again. So once you've done the DFX deploy and NPM start, you then have 2 canisters on your computer. And one will have the assets inside, and the other will be the actual contract that gets to be executed. And once you have that, then you can start exercising the smart contract. You can just use DFX to do this without having a front end built. You can just do things like DFX canister call dip 721. That's the name of the canister we're going to call name, and it comes back with the name of the NFT. And if I did the same thing, DFX canister call dip 721 symbol, it comes back with the symbol for that NFT. To mint a token, in this case, I use the URL as the URI, which isn't traditionally what's done, but that's what I did. You just say DFX canister call dip 721 and mint, and with the argument, and it comes back and says, here's your token ID, and it's token number 1 in that format because it's a strongly typed language. And if I want to check who the owner was, I could say owner of token 1, and it would return the principal, and you can see that it's an optional principal that it's come back with. Likewise, to confirm who owns it, you can say in this particular implementation of code, they've added the function do I own. So I can say, do I own token 1? And it says true, I do. So then I can transfer it. And in order to transfer it, I have to do the transfer from. I pass the principal of who I am, and I have to put in the word principal in front because it needs to be compliant with candid format. So principal, and then the principal, and then to whom I want to transfer it. So this is another user that I happen to have on my computer because I was just working with the local environment. So principal, and I put it here, and then the token ID, and I execute it, and it comes back null, saying there are no errors. It's a happy to have that transfer done. So now when I do the DFX call dip 721 do I own, and notice I did do I own up here. Down here, when I do that, it says, nope, false. I do not own it. Why? Because I just transferred it. I no longer own it. So then I can say, who owns it? Owner of 1. And it comes back and says, the other principal now owns this. So the DIP 721 methods available in that smart contract, there are quite a few of them. We just went through a couple of them, but all of these standards have a number of methods which support various implementations and needs based on the perception of the developer who put together the standard. So even though we deployed a minter and minted some NFTs, there's a whole bunch of things that are missing. So I didn't have a front end. Not too many clients are going to want to be using DFX to mint their NFTs directly. You need to have an HTTP request endpoint. I need a D in there. Sorry about that. You have to add access control and security, your metrics for monitoring. You need to add your payment flows, testing with marketplaces, and integration with a variety of other environments. And your front end, you can use some really pretty cool dynamic front ends, reactive front ends. So I'll put the video up in the on the GitHub. It's actually there. I put it in the learning resources earlier this week. There's also an example of going through with the EXT standard. I am not a developer. I'm learning this just like you are, but I thought I'd pull this together as an intro to show you what's possible. So now we will move to the questions and answers. Be gentle. Thank you.
Yeah, Ted says he's not a developer, but he's pretty well known in the community, and he has a lot of expertise. So he's just being humble there. Y'all feel free to go ahead and raise your hands if you have questions, and I'll unmute you. Since no one has their hand up quite yet, I actually have a question. So I noticed that on the standard for one of the DIP 721s, first off, it's a little confusing that there's multiple 721s, but one of them, like all the commands end it with 721. And I was thinking, well, if all the commands are unique for that standard, could I implement two standards at the same time by just having all of the commands that one expects and all of the commands that the other expects too?
So having a unique namespace is a fantastic idea. And I think that there's great interest in that, or there's been some interest expressed in that area, because it gets complicated when you're moving from one to the other and you're writing wrappers and things like that. So this is one way to differentiate. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you basically could have two standards working at once for the same.
Yeah, so if you look at something like Entrepot, I think that Bob was mentioning that they use wrappers to bring in foreign NFT structures and to manage them because it's complicated to get everybody to be on the same standard when there are multiple collections of NFTs that are out there already. There may be eventually some coalescence towards a more common standard. I would hope that there would be agreement on what some of the more fundamental methods would be across all NFTs. So you may have a really, really neat NFT that is able to render VRML or augmented reality or some artificial intelligence components or data sets. I am just dealing with art, and I don't need all of the features. However, we both need to transfer our NFTs and we both need to sell our NFTs. So maybe there can be some commonality at that layer.
That's really cool. All right, the fourth.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Perfectly.
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, thank you, Ted, for your presentation. Very informative stuff, very simple. My question is kind of silly. So my question is, let's say I have a picture that I've drawn on Paint, let's say, and I want to mint it as an NFT just for the laughs, you know. And let's say I've shared it with someone else. Is there a way that the network or the minter could identify if a certain file has been minted as an NFT before, so it can't be stolen, let's say?
Not that I am aware of, because each image is unique, correct? Sorry, not each image is unique. An image can be copied, and then that can then be minted as an NFT. Watermarking of an NFT that is exactly the same would be able to determine if it's been duplicated from the original, but the provenance has to be determined based on the blockchain. So I don't think they've solved that problem yet.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's inherent to all NFTs, period, pretty much. But I guess the difference would be if there's utility to your NFTs, then people can take the image, but what's the use?
Absolutely. And that's where, when I came on learning about NFTs, to me, it was a technical implementation of a file, of an image and some other neat things. I've since realized that NFTs is experiential, that people want to be a part of the community. They have to have roadmaps for where the NFTs are going. It's much broader than anything I ever imagined and understood. And I'm humbled by the people who have put up with me in the various Discord chats talking about NFTs, because when I see what they've done and what they've created, I'm absolutely amazed. And I was only interested in learning about how to put my PNG file into a registry. I didn't get it at the beginning. I still am learning about it, but it's amazing. $50 million worth of wealth. It's amazing.
Yeah, and your diplomas will get you access to that Discover portal. People can screenshot and steal the image of the diploma, but they can't. That won't ever give them access to that Discover portal. So, all right, Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question about the DIP 721 standard that you showed an example of, because I've, in my experience with NFT canisters, I've done a lot of stuff using the EXT standard, where I try to find, like, let's say we're giving access to a user that's going to that Discover portal. What is the easiest way to look at the tokens that the user has under this standard?
So I think if I look at Discover, and if I'm not mistaken, they're leveraging CAP as a service to be able to quickly determine if someone has a particular NFT to manage the portal.
Yeah, I actually looked into this. So you basically create a role and give that role the permissions you want. And I think right now it's still over email. The documentation they have says send them an email, and they need the canister ID that holds your NFTs, and then they probably hard coded into somewhere in the platform, and they probably didn't take it over email to do some filtering themselves, so that not everybody can just do it on demand. But basically, then I assume that they query that canister with based on whatever standard to make sure that the person with the principal is the owner.
Right. Very specifically, my question is, under the EXT standard that Tonic Labs put up, I see there's a registry where you can search for like a principal, and it'll give you the tokens belonging to that person. And I didn't see that in the DIP standard. It seems like you have to have the token ID, and then you can look up who owns that token ID. I was just wondering if off the top of your head you knew if there's an easy way to search using the principal, or if you have to add in some other features.
So I cannot answer that question. Jorgen Builder will probably be able to answer that question in his presentation, because he's looking deeply at the DIP 721 standard.
I can try to answer that. Yeah, in the EXT standard there is the registry, so it links the principal or the account identifier with the list of NFT they own. So it's really easy to query that endpoint and just get all the NFT of someone from this canister. I don't think there is something like that in the DIP 721, but you can leverage CAP, and CAP is a service that allows you to track NFTs. So every time a transaction happens, so a transfer between two parties, or a burn or a mint, or something that, change the number of NFTs, you register that to CAP, and CAP can basically, you can have the registry on CAP if you implement it. and that's how you can have a registry without like overblowing the memory of your canister, because the registry can cause problem. But yeah, you would do it like that, I think.
So CAP has its own interface where you can query CAP to get information on your canister and the state of it.
Exactly.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
So I have a question online that came in. Viral has asked, what do I think about the concept of earn to play and possible implementations of it, like music streaming service where you can earn tokens for listening? Awesome. I think there's lots of opportunities to be innovative. Whether or not it flies or not from a market share perspective, I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask, but there are so many ways to incentivize people with NFTs when you're using your service. It's a very interesting idea to explore.
All right, any other questions? When TED NFTs, Seb wants to know.
Yeah, to the moon. Yeah, when I'll put out my NFTs, and I think it'll probably be maybe my artwork for my children when they were young. I'll do that.
You gotta call them NFTeddies.
That's right. Very good.
To the moon.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for listening and for your questions. I really enjoyed doing this, and I'll see you in the Discord and online. And thank you as well for organizing this wonderful event.
Hey, and I just want to give everyone, tell everyone that we really thank you so much, Ted. So what happened is Jorgen was feeling really sick, and literally like an hour and a half ago, Ted decided to go in and take his time slot on such short notice, and that's not easy to do. So Ted, we really appreciate you and all the time and energy that you've put into this, and for being so flexible to keep this event flowing. We all really just appreciate you. So thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
All right. You all have a great rest of your day. That's it for today. And we start bright and early tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think, is the heaviest lecture day we have. And then it gets lighter from there, so you can get to work on your core project. All right. So you all have a good rest of your day.